goodness and mercy. Soaking in Spirit, Holy Spirit, number 5. Continuing in the book of the wisdom book, the wisdom of Solomon. Wisdom, chapter 9, verses 16 to 18. In the primary verse, who has learned your counsel, unless you have given wisdom and sent your Holy Spirit from on high? Who has learned your counsel, God, unless you have given your wisdom and sent your Holy Spirit from on high? We can hardly guess at what is on earth, and what is at hand we find with a lot of effort. But who has figured out what's far away in the heavens? Who has learned your counsel unless you have given wisdom and sent your Holy Spirit from on high? And thus the paths of those on earth were set right, and people were taught what pleases you. People were saved by wisdom. Wisdom, chapter 9, 16 to 18. Wisdom 12. For your immortal spirit is in all things. Therefore you correct, little by little, those who trespass. And you remind and warn them of the things through which way they sin, so that they may be freed from wickedness and put their trust in you, O Lord. That's a good one. Wisdom 12, verses 1 and 2. For your immortal spirit is in all things. Wisdom 15. This is a warning to those who don't care to focus on God. Their heart is ashes, their hope is cheaper than dirt, and their lives are of less worth than clay, because they failed to know the one who formed them. They failed to know the one who inspired them with active souls around them. They failed to know the one who breathed a living spirit into them. That's describing forming and creating a peer group or a family, putting a family around a person, and then breathing the spirit into them. But they considered our existence an idle game, and life a festival held for profit. For they say one must get money however one can, even by base means. Dosa didikana dikanda. Doshi didikari batan madabako. Gosebari dari namata konda baba. Wisdom. Wisdom 15:16. This is continuing to speak warnings against those who are not focused on God. Departed spirit. Okay, that's all from wisdom. Now we move on to Sirach. Sirach. Sirach 34, 13 to 15. I have often been in danger of death, but I have escaped because of these experiences. The spirit of those who fear the Lord will live, for their hope is in him who saves them. The spirit of those who fear Yahweh will live, for their hope is in him who saves them. Sirach 39, verse 6. Speaking of the righteous man. He sets his heart to rise early, to seek Yahweh who made him. He sets his heart to rise early, to petition the Most High. He opens his mouth in prayer and asks pardon for his sins. If the great Yahweh is willing, he will be filled with the spirit of understanding. Fill us with the spirit of understanding. If Yahweh is willing, he will be filled with the spirit of understanding. He will pour forth words of wisdom of his own and give thanks to Yahweh in prayer. Yahweh will direct his counsel and knowledge as he meditates on his mysteries. This is from one of my favorite passages in Sirach, which is talking about the occupation of the scribe, who listens to the elders and considers the writings and meditates on the Proverbs. Sirach 39. He will be filled with the spirit of understanding. Now, this is not Holy Spirit, but this is a reference to Elijah and Elisha. Sirach 48. Happy are those who saw you and were adorned with your love, for we also shall surely live. When Elijah was enveloped in the whirlwind, Elisha was filled with his spirit. He performed twice as many signs and marvels with every utterance of his mouth. Never in his lifetime did he tremble before any ruler, nor could anyone intimidate him at all. Nothing was too hard for him, and when he was dead, his body prophesied. Elisha was filled with his spirit. Sometimes the spirit of those who have been a great influence to us can also be their mantle, their way of being can actually be set in us. Father, put in me the spirit of my greatest elders and your Holy Spirit. Sirach 48. In Isaiah's days, the sun went backwards, and he prolonged the life of the king. By Isaiah's dauntless spirit, he saw the future and comforted the mourners in Zion. Isaiah revealed what was to occur to the end of time and the hidden things before they happened. Isaiah had a dauntless spirit. Dauntless. Study that word, dauntless. Sirach. Sirach. Moving on to Baruch. No. Moving on to prayer of Azariah. A reference to spirit. Prayer of Azariah 15 to 17. In our day we have no ruler, we have no prophet, we have no leader. In our day we have no burnt offering, no sacrifice, no oblation, no incense. In our day we have no place to make an offering before you and to find mercy. Yet with a contrite heart and a humble spirit, we will be accepted. As though it were with burnt offerings of rams and bulls, or with tens of thousands of fat lambs. Such may our sacrifice be in your sight today, and may we unreservedly follow you, for no shame will come to those who trust in you. A contrite heart and a humble spirit. May it be for us that we have a contrite heart and a humble spirit. Susanna. Susanna 44 to 46. These are the extensions of Daniel. The Lord heard her cry. Just as she was being led off to execution, God stirred up the Holy Spirit of a young lad named Daniel. And he shouted with a loud voice, I want no part in shedding this woman's blood. The Lord heard the woman's cry. Just as she was being led off to execution, God stirred up the Holy Spirit of a young lad named Daniel. And he shouted with a loud voice, I want no part in shedding this woman's blood. Stir up the Holy Spirit in us as you did in Daniel. First Maccabees 13, 6 to 8. But I will avenge my nation. I will avenge my family and the sanctuary and your wives and children, for all the nations have gathered together out of hatred to destroy us. The spirit of the people was rekindled when they heard these words. And they answered in a loud voice, You are our leader in place of Judas and your brother Jonathan. The spirit of the people was rekindled. May the spirit of our peoples be rekindled in the perfect way of life of Christ, just as he taught it. May we follow the way of life, just as Jesus taught to his apostles. Second Maccabees 1. May God do good to you, and may he remember his covenant with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, his faithful servants. May he give you all a heart to worship him, and to do his will with a strong heart and a willing spirit. May he open your heart to his law and his commandments, and may he bring peace. Second Maccabees 7, verse 12. As a result, the king himself and those with him were astonished at the young man's spirit, because the young man regarded his own sufferings as nothing. After that young man died, they maltreated and tortured the fourth brother in the same way. When the Holy Spirit comes over us and we are in sufferings, we can be triumphant and in total peace, even in our final hour. This is the mother of the tortured boys in the story in Maccabees. 2 Maccabees 7, verse 20. The mother was especially admirable and worthy of honorable mercy, although she saw her 7 sons perish within a single day. She bore it with good courage because of her hope in Yahweh. She encouraged each of them in the language of their ancestors, filled with a noble spirit. The woman is filled with a noble spirit. And she reinforced her woman's reasoning with a man's courage. She reinforced her woman's reasoning with a man's courage and said to them, I do not know how you came into being in my womb. It was not I who gave you life and breath, nor I who set in order the elements within each of you. Go Shadida Medavaka. Or study Gatanamala. Say Shadida Vada. Next.